Welcome to the Spiritual Alien Podcast, a podcast for starseeds and light workers looking for inspiration and guidance on topics relating to spirituality, New Age teachings, and ET phenomena. I am Zion Zeta, and I am here to help you step into your own inner power so that you can light up the world by being your most authentic self. Remember, no one is you, and that is your power. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Alien Podcast. So, to continue the Symposium series, Laura Eisenhower is the next special guest on this episode. Laura Eisenhower is one of the speakers of Connecting the Stars, the Symposium. You can purchase a single speaker presentation ticket or a ticket to get full access to the event by going to zionzeta.com/Laura Eisenhower. Laura Eisenhower is a global alchemist, cosmic mythologist, and intuitive astrologist. She is also a whistleblower who has been exposing an attempted recruitment she went through to take her off planet. She is an internationally acclaimed speaker who has presented her work worldwide. Laura is the great-granddaughter of President Dwight David Eisenhower, and she reveals exopolitical information about his administration that has been largely held in secrecy. She is considered by many to be one of North America's leading researchers on health, exopolitics, alchemy, metaphysics, and galactic history. Laura works to free us from the 3D holographic time loop, false archonic systems, and military-industrial complex, and exposes hidden agendas so that we can take our power back. Feeling a calling regarding her mission since she was a child, she has gained incredible insight through experience, psychic development, and research about how to guide us into higher earth energies. She has a deep understanding of the Gaia Sophia and Magdalene energies, of love and wisdom, and how they connect to the Venus transits and ascension. Her passion is to inspire unity consciousness and bring us back to the 0 point unified field, the totality of our divine powers. Again, you can purchase a single speaker presentation ticket or a ticket to get full access to the event by going to zionzeta.com/Laura Eisenhower. If you are listening on iTunes or Google Play, it is recommended that you watch this interview on YouTube for the best experience. The rest of the interviews with the speakers from Connecting the Stars the Symposium will also be in video format as well. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel by going to zionzeta.com/YouTube. All right, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Spiritual Alien Podcast. So tonight we have another very special guest, and her name is Laura Eisenhower. So Laura, thank you so much for joining me tonight on the Spiritual Alien Podcast. Welcome. And how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having me. It's really good to be here.
I am very honored to have you here, and I can't believe it. I'm trying to not freak out on you, but I am very excited to have you as a guest, not just of the Spiritual Alien Podcast, but also as a very special guest of Connecting the Stars, the Symposium. So let's just get started with the first question. So the first one is, how do you become interested in spirituality and ETs? Like, did you experience a spiritual awakening?
Well, ever since I was young, I've always just been sort of out there and kind of journeying through the multidimensional realms and having really profound dreams and sort of looking at the world around me and how limited things like religion are, without any judgment on it, of course, but just always knowing there's so much more to the picture than what we're being shown. So it was just kind of a natural curiosity and openness. So yeah, that was all throughout just my childhood, and of course that never goes away. I think that the school systems and the programmings out there try and knock a lot of that out of us so that we either forget or we think it's all in our imagination, and I never bought that either. I was like, and then I really started to look into social engineering and control agendas and things that are really trying to rob us of that, because I think naturally we all can connect into it. There's a timing factor too, because some might not be ready. But yeah, I had some pretty wild experiences as a child. And it's just always been an interest for me to understand what it means to be sovereign and open to multidimensional awareness and to allow ourselves a unique experience without trying to tell others what to do too much. Because I think our life experiences teaches us that. The one thing that I do like to expose people to is maybe some of the limiting programs that can shut our creative imagination down and our access to what is, truly out there on a multidimensional level.
All right. So, as a follow up to that question, have you had close encounters with aliens in the physical sense or maybe in some type of dream state or astral state?
Yeah, actually, when I was younger, one of the most significant experiences that I had were a luminous group of beings that were sort of preparing me for what was ahead. And they showed me something to look through, which related to timelines in this particular window period that we're in right now, which is called a stellar activation cycle. And they were kind of prepping me for it. I didn't quite get their name, but it was, I was getting that it was Arcturian or something to that nature. They were very feminine energy, luminous, no hair. I don't think, yeah, well, some have hair, but some don't. And yeah, they were kind of preparing me and giving me a warning not to let them take me away. And so in 2006, when I was recruited to go off planet to go to Mars, then I was starting to feel into that memory, and that was probably what they were warning me about, to not leave this Earth, and that I had a strong mission on Earth related to the opening of the stargates and um, sort of the stuff that I talk about and I will be talking about at the symposium, which is kind of like what it all leads up to. I mean, I do believe we are curious beings and we are from beyond this Earth realm. But when we travel to the stars, I really feel like we need to do it on our own terms because there are dark agendas out there. When it comes to other beings that I've encountered, a lot of them are through my clients. A lot of them are through different individuals, like they're carrying that energy or they have that being working with them, maybe even to the point of possession. And so I've gotten a lot of that more through others. And I battled some dark beings on the astral for sure at nighttime. So yeah, that's just a little summary of some of my experiences.
All right. So, I want to get more into the whole Mars part later on in the interview because I am very curious about that. Now, you have been in the public eye for several years. Now, I am wondering, how do you get started with this? Because besides being the great granddaughter of President Eisenhower, that kind of comes already with the territory. But what actually pushed you to go fully public with your mission? And what is your mission?
Okay, well, what really pushed it was when I got out of the recruitment to go to Mars in 2006 and 2007, I started to talk to folks like Michael Sala. I started to get to know folks like Alfred Lambermont Weber. They were really curious about my story because, of course, they do everything exopolitical and wanted to kind of figure out what had happened because, how do these dots connect was really the question. And of course, I was feeling the same way, like, what the heck was that all about? I want to connect the dots. So I was reading their material. And when I was getting out of the recruitment, though, I didn't have really anything to go on. It was much later that I discovered those guys. I ended up on the phone with Michael for a long time. Alfred and I had sort of a back and forth, and I didn't necessarily feel ready to go public. So I made an agreement with myself that when nature's ready for me, or when greater universal forces are ready for me, it's just going to happen if that's what needs to happen. And it just so happened that Alfred accidentally was sent an email that was going back and forth between a friend of mine. I don't know if she purposely sent it to him. I don't know if some other force made sure it went to his inbox, but he was seeing the dialogue between me and her because I had confided in her about the stuff I had gone through, and it was just sort of like a total fluke. And I still don't have the answers to that. So once Alfred found out about it, and just my interest in, potentially coming forward with it, I can't even remember what was said in the email. He invited me to do an interview with him in 2010. And from there, and when those videos, got out there, it was sort of like wildfire. I started to get invited to events. I started to get invited to do interviews, and I didn't expect all that to happen. And I was a little stunned even when the article came out. It was really surreal. And I'm like, did that just go public? It was a little bizarre, but I wasn't pushing for it. I was just kind of handing it over to, like I said, other forces of benevolent forces. I said, if it's right for humanity and this is necessary, it'll make it out there. I don't want to be the one that makes that decision. So yeah, so 2010 is when I started getting public.
Now, I was curious about, besides your mission and such, I have seen your website that you were almost recruited to Mars, if I am not mistaken. So I would like to ask you, could you explain what happened, and do you know why they specifically wanted you there, like to recruit you to Mars?
Yeah, and I just really quickly want to say, because you asked me about my mission, it's really to protect the organic ascension timeline and to really move us into unity consciousness, to help us to understand our DNA and its connection to the earth grids and the multidimensional cosmos, just sort of in a nutshell. And things about the 13th gate and the activation of that, which relates to, just grounding and anchoring something very important back into the planet so that the timeline shift out of the artificial intelligence hands, but it's up to each individual. So back to the Mars thing. I think a lot of it, from what I found out, there was a defector that was a part of the recruitment, and he basically was not so a part of the group that he couldn't sort of talk to people outside of the group. He didn't have the oaths or the loyalty, but he was sort of an advisor and somebody that was privy to what they were doing. So when I left the whole deal, when I refused to go to Mars and join the program, he started to write me because he knew that I was about to blow the whistle. I don't know if they were able to see it with their technologies or what, because Looking Glass Technologies is part of how they pulled me into the program. They were able to track things in past lives. They were able to sort of track my mission. They saw me in a partnership with the person that recruited me, and could tell that we already had an affinity for each other. So they used him as bait by mind controlling him and putting him on my path so that he would pull me into the program, and I would just think that this was a great idea because I had such familiarity with him. So that was all manipulation. He was a MyLab victim, and he was undergoing just all sorts of weird stuff where you could tell that he had more than one personality going on, because he would forget stuff real easily and he would go off on missions and not remember. And that's when I really started to do research of like trying to understand everything going on in the background. So they knew I had a mission to really help in this ascension window. They knew I had a strong connection to Gaia, to the balance of the masculine and feminine, on an earth grid level, on a sort of more metaphorical level of just our energy circulation, just in our own bodies, and how there's been agendas to just internally keep us off track. It has nothing to do with our orientation as far as how we relate to other humans. It has to do with how we feel inside of ourselves, kind of thing, which is really threatening because they want to keep us in duality. They want to keep us conquered and divided. They want to keep us out of balance to the point where we're either giving our power away, or we feel like a victim, or we're the power hungry ones that are trying to control others. So my whole deal is sovereignty. Whoever you are, whatever that means, we deserve the right to be fully who we are, individuals entering the unified field, though, where diversity in harmony is oneness. Instead of us all trying to push each other to be the same or operate under a particular belief system, we appreciate sovereignty, what it means to be a sovereign individual, which I love because I know that you're about that, and you're definitely a sovereign being. And I love your work, by the way. So I knew that they were sort of monitoring me. They were looking at the website that I was starting to create. They, Andrew Bashago from Project Pegasus said they had pre-targeted me before birth. They pre-targeted me before birth to steer me onto this timeline. And I think they just wanted somebody in my bloodline, because Eisenhower was always trying to stop these dark agendas. But if they could convince somebody who seems vulnerable and impressionable to go along with their agenda and make it look good, then they've captured a piece of maybe the bloodline that has tried to blow the whistle on them when he warned about the military industrial complex. So I think they just wanted to capture a bit of that, because they made it look good. They're like, oh, it's for your protection and we'll give you this great leadership position. And I'm like, that whole, I don't know about that. So, and like I said, just my mission on earth. So when I was being prepared as a child, the dots sort of connected, where don't let them take you away, don't ever lose connection with your own truth. And I was always being like shown what I need to do here on earth to help us advance. So I couldn't go against that. And I think that they thought that if they pulled in somebody that I had an affinity towards and they made it look good and they started to steer me in that direction, no matter, what I thought, it wouldn't matter, because it was sort of a form of heart control instead of mind control. But anyway, it didn't end up working out. And, it was just like, really intense. So that's also a part of my mission, is to help preserve organic ascension, and to call out all this other stuff, and to find a way to balance out, technology with spiritual development, so that technology doesn't override it, but we find the right technologies to support us. And so, I mean, this ties into my mission, not doing the Mars thing, to begin to expose these artificial technologies, to begin to expose MK Ultra, mind control, psychotronic weaponry, all the hidden technologies, teleportation, time travel, and then, agendas like, transhumanism and geoengineering and that kind of stuff. And they were all kind of affiliated with that. So it all kind of ties into the mission. So I think somebody that they feel threatened by, somebody they want to convince their and they're supporting, figuring that I would never find this other stuff out, because you couldn't find this stuff on them. When I was Googling around, it wasn't like obvious that those were the people I was dealing with. I researched for weeks to get some dirt on them, because I knew something wasn't right. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that somebody actually made a website that validated all the stuff that I had said. Gang stalkers, psychotronic weaponry, MyLabs, artificial telepathy, and all these things that they were affiliated with, that I only had my intuition to go on. But, it took me 2 weeks to find anything that connected the dots between them and some of this other stuff. And like I said, later a website came out and really, put it out there. But I wasn't going to give up, because they had cover stories. They were able to bury all this information. It wasn't available on the internet. I had to track cases and people that had known them and read everything they had ever written until I saw the names and the association with the abuses that they dealt with. So I'm sitting there like on the computer for like 2 weeks straight, like, nobody talk to me. I'm not on until I find what I'm looking for. And so it was really great, because it validated, like, Laura, you do have an intuition, and you followed, your internal guidance, and, like, right on. And I was so glad, because, we grew up with stigmas. Sometimes we don't feel like we're the sharpest tool in the shed, but, that was really confirming that, wow, okay, I was correct in my assessments, and I'm glad I got me and my kids out of it, because it really wasn't a good thing.
Wow, that is overwhelming, to say the least. And a lot of people see you, but again, there's this whole slandering agenda to take down those of you like yourself, Laura, who have this mission of exposing the cabal, for example, and all the secret programs that are happening behind closed doors that nobody really knows about them. And so that leads me to the next question. How do you deal with those who oppose you and try to slander you?
I've gotten so used to it, but I realize just there is, it sort of like depends what time of day I read it, or what time of the month. I don't know, like where maybe, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I wouldn't say I get totally sensitive to it. A lot of times I kind of make fun of it. A lot of times I sort of want to engage. If it's a troll, I tend to just delete, because you can tell a troll's a troll. If it's somebody that's just confused by the information and is threatened by the information, I have no problem just trying to help them to understand. I don't throw all this out there to just leave people hanging. And I know it lights up a lot in people, and people, are going to purge energies. It starts to shake them up a little bit. They might start to deprogram and feel really uncomfortable. They might just have skepticism, which is healthy. So I don't mind all that. I think it's important. And I like to have dialogues that help people to see me more for who I am, so that, whatever projections, or, if somebody else smeared me and then they read it and assumed the person who smeared me is correct, I like to just help them to, gain some kind of clarity. I've seen so much ridiculous stuff said about me over the years that I really don't take it personally. It kind of reinforces my inner truth. It doesn't scare me. It's just, what I'm afraid is that it doesn't give people a chance to give me the time of day that might really benefit from this kind of information. So that's the only place it really lights me up. So there's trolls, and then there's confused people, and then there's just people that just aren't mentally stable that I think have a real big issue. I choose humor. I mean, I just kind of laugh it off. If I do get sensitive about it, I just kind of take a deep breath, and I don't know. I just know it's part of the whole kind of deal. I try and respectively debate if necessary. Sometimes I get a little fired up, and then I have to go back and delete my F-bombs, and just keep it chill. I don't want to be all reactive or anything, but I do notice that I'm not always the same in the way I react, but I'm certainly in a different place than I was when I first came out. I'm just a lot more immune to it. It's just like, that's okay. But like I said, there's a difference between trolls and people that are just trying to understand the information. And I have no issue, conversing and talking to them. But the minute it starts to get derogatory and nasty, I'll give a warning. And if the warning's not respected, yeah. I mean, my delete list on Facebook is like over 200. The blocked list,
Wow.
blocking people.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been that bad. And I don't block easily at all.
Wow. So I ask you because you are one of the people that I really admire and look up to. And I have been here for like 5 years in the public eye, just kind of in the shadows, but kind of there, kind of like a fly on the wall, so to speak. So I am very curious to know, like, how does Laura handle haters, and is there a way to tell if it's a disinformation agent trying to discredit you, or just a random troll, or just someone that's not exactly too mentally healthy? Because these days, especially with everything that's been going on, with so much division and hatred and competition, with politics, religion, and all these different topics, it's very easy for people to get defensive and to simply attack other people for having a different opinion or point of view. So, and I have seen people being mean to you on your own personal profile page. And I'm like, how does someone deal with all this negative energy? Like, how do you vanish the negative energy? How do you um, cut the cords? Is there something where you use to protect yourself from not just negative energy from people, but from parasitic entities as well?
I work with black stone, dark stones like shungite, obsidian, black tourmaline. I always carry it around in my pocket. I work with essential oils. I definitely, like I said, focus in on humor. And the more authentic we are, the more our BS meter works. We can tell a little bit better the difference. But sometimes it's really hard to tell. Like I said, I definitely block people if they're coming at me in a really, when you just know that person's a troll. If somebody's just being difficult, I'll just sort of engage and just wait and see. I tend to check profiles, and just kind of look at, the kind of the pictures and just sort of the posts that person's been sharing. There's a lot of obvious pages that are troll pages. They're very underdeveloped. You can tell that a lot of it is just kind of like fake pictures. When it comes to YouTube comments, there's a lot of trolls. There's a lot of smear campaigns, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, delete's a really great thing, and just speaking your truth in response to it. And I just know that my heart's in the right place. So nobody can really, get to me. There's some things, though, because we all have our wounds, we all have traumas from the past that are just going to throw us off, right? Where we lose our space. And it's just like, whoa, what was that? Um, and I just look at all the love and support, and just kind of like forgiveness. And when it's trolls, sometimes I kind of make fun of them, like, wow, what a great life calling you have, you have nothing better to do. Like, what a great hobby. Like, um, it just, if I bring humor into it, it's sort of like when I look at like chemtrails. Instead of having it really upset me, I turn the weapon into a tool. I let it serve as a reminder. Like, thanks for reminding me that you're threatened by our power. And it's a reminder that you can't get the best of us because we hold a much higher frequency than these assaults. The whole deal is that they want to keep us in a lower vibration through the programmings. And as long as we're in a low vibration, the nanites or the nanoparticles, the toxicity of our world is going to get the best of us. We have to elevate our consciousness and be in a frequency that can actually neutralize it or transmute it. So every time something wants to hurt me, I immediately go towards, well, how can I alchemize this? What is the higher level of awareness that I can hold in the face of this to kind of like turn it around? And so it's kind of a case by case basis. This needs to be blocked. Okay, maybe I'll answer this one. Maybe this one should be ignored. Maybe somebody else can address this person. I mean, I've had websites out on me, videos out on me, saying absolute, lies. People saying that I'm not really an Eisenhower. It's like, I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I have like friends that, I mean, this is not a hard thing to prove. So do I have to expend my energy to convince this person? Well, if they come at me with respect, sure. But if they're being nasty, it's just like, you know what, you don't even deserve the time of day, if you're going to come at me from this point of view. So yeah, there's all sorts of ways to protect the self. It's really important to just get into the breath, to just, be in your divine center. And I don't know if you saw my post the other day, there's 7 billion people on the planet. You can afford to lose a few that treat you bad. It might even be friends, not just trolls or not just, haters or people who are confused by the information. It might be people that used to be friends. It might be family that ostracizes you. So we just have to like open ourselves up to the larger picture and know that there are plenty that will resonate, that will connect. And as long as that your heart's in the right place, just keep moving forward and, appreciate the fact that you're never alone, and there's always going to be people that have your back and that love what you do. And even without that, you have, one has to really connect with what they value most. Because I'd be doing this mission whether I had support or not. I was doing it since I was a kid, when I was doing it when I had no friends. Now it's a little bit more public in the hopes that people will begin to wake up, which is a huge part of it. But, when everything was stacked against me, I was still devoted. So we have to know that it's not reliant on outer validation. And we also have to know that we're there for each other. Like if any of my friends get hurt or feel whacked, it's just people like can send me a note and say, hey, I'm having a hard time getting over this nasty insult. Or can you come onto my thread and have my back for me because I really don't like the way I'm being treated? I'm that person that people can write and I'll be there for them. And I think that's important to have that kind of disposition in this kind of community setting, that we can, hold space for each other and reach out to each other if necessary.
And that is something very important that unfortunately is becoming very challenged these days with all the smear campaigns going on and researchers discrediting each other, or whistleblowers, kind of like going back and forth and, like, oh, I don't agree with this person. This person is a LARP or something like that. There's so much division these days, and it's very important that we all forget about the differences, because that's what makes us unique, and just come together and work together for the greater whole.
Exactly.
Because I know, because, this is the most challenging time that we can ever be in right now. And it's when we are all being put to the test to see how well we work together despite our differences. And unfortunately, people are getting caught up in the drama, and mainly in the spiritual community, where you would probably expect people to be more open-minded, more conscious.
I know. It's shocking.
So it's like, there is division even among spiritual people who supposedly have a higher mind and have a higher vibration, but even they are still getting themselves divided. And it's just like how Corey Good has been saying, there needs to be unity in the community these days. And I have no idea how to put this into words, but unfortunately, these days, it's not looking very united when it comes to certain new people coming forward with experiences and others. There's been quite a lot of drama that, Laura, I'm sure you're up to date with, because you're in contact with all these people as well. So I don't know what's going to happen, because we are all here to put an example, to set the example, not just for everybody, but the newer generations that are coming forward, the younger people like myself and others that are minors, actually, who are probably watching this. And we have to set the example and be the example, because we are the change that we're waiting for.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said all this. And that's why when there's differences, that's not an attack. That's just somebody with a different opinion. But when having a different opinion leads to attack and smearing and war, I mean, it's very biased because somebody just wants to get their way. And to me, that's a lower form of consciousness. We need to be able to accept each other's differences. We need to not project. Everybody deserves a voice. Everybody deserves a chance. And everybody has the right to discern what they think of it without it being kept from us. And I'm not referring to anything specific. I am aware of all the different dramas going on. I'm just kind of stepping back and letting it play out. But just like you said, I'm just holding myself accountable. I want to be an example. I want to stand for balance and unity and wholeness and forgiveness and compassion. And all we can do is decide for that. All we can really do is decide that for ourselves and hope that other people feel inspired by it. But the community as a whole right now will need to come together somehow and smooth all this out, because if not, there's too many cracks in the foundation that could allow a lot of dark energies in, and this is what we're trying to emerge out of. So I'm definitely going to do my best to manage it and keep an open mind all around, to what's coming forward, and just really stay focused on, my mission and my message while still staying a unified being. I'm going to keep myself very sovereign as somebody who supports unity consciousness. We have to be sovereign in unity consciousness, and in our sovereignty, we shouldn't be threatened by differences of opinion. I mean, everybody else has the right to discern the information, but to try and convince somebody else how to think, I'd rather just have them see for themselves and yeah, form their own conclusions. So censoring, I don't know, this is all just getting just a little bit weird, but we'll see how it plays out. And I just love the fact that you said all that. And it's very important for younger generations. Yep. This is not an example to follow right now, but I do believe that something beautiful is going to emerge. I think there's enough of us that will make sure of it. And all that doesn't serve us will fall away.
And I really hope that this comes to fruition, because I know that better times are ahead. But it's just that right now, more of us seem to be coming forward with our stories, experiences, evidence, and actually joining together and making these conferences, whether in person or online. I know that you're going to be, in my symposium, Connecting the Stars, but also you're going to be at Disclosure Fest. So we're all doing our own work somehow, in some way, somewhere on the planet, to bring more attention to the people. And the good thing is that these conscious parents, spiritual parents, are bringing their children to these events to also absorb the knowledge that's being shared. So like I was mentioning, when it comes to being public and getting attacks, I was also wondering, have you ever encountered the Men in Black, or have you ever been harassed by black helicopters or any other way of some sort of shadow military harassment?
Mostly just with the recruiters, just trying to convince me to make it look like everything's fine with us on a public level. And again, I don't do this us against them. I mean, we have to have compassion for the factor and understanding of the fact that there's a lot of people being compromised. There's a lot of compartmentalization, and there's mind control. Not everybody's operating from their authenticity. I mean, I get death threats. As far as I mean, I see helicopters here and there. I don't always assume that they're coming after me. I've gotten targeted in so many ways, though, more like just weaponry, frequency type modulations and manipulate. Mostly what when I got out of the Mars recruitment, what somebody reported to me was they have plants. They put plants on my path that are like agents. They're not real, people that I'm just meeting on a casual level, to just completely mess with my world. And there's been quite a few in my life, where you get close to somebody, then all of a sudden they turn 360 degrees. It's kind of like a Manchurian Candidate, where they're not who they say they are. They're not the person you thought they were. And that's probably the worst, because they know that I'm a heart-based person. I'm like a Libra. I'm all about partnerships and friendships. So the best way to get to me is for me to bond with somebody that turns on me. And it's not just paranoia, like, oh, I assume that, I'm being targeted. I used to not think I was being targeted. I just was with an unstable person, or, whatever. And then I went somewhere I worked with a bunch of clairvoyants and psychics, and I started to develop my own psychic abilities, and they were helping me to see the weaponry on me, the plants. But somebody who defected from the Mars recruiters did say that they had a list of individuals that they would put in my way. So, some of the threats, I kind of laugh off. I think somebody gave me a death threat on Facebook, and I didn't quite see it as a death threat, but it was definitely sort of along those lines. As far as Men in Black or military folk, I mean, the whole Mars recruiter thing was military and connected to the military. And so there have been things that have appeared to be, kind of monitoring or kind of checking me out. But, I tend to not want to feed into it because it seems like it's there to intimidate me. And so I just kind of like, do what I can. But I've moved like 40 times. Like, I've moved so many times, maybe more than 40 times, always knowing that something's about to try and destroy me and I got to get the hell out of here, and I just feel like for the last 20, 30 years, I've had to strategize every position, every move that I make on the chessboard. I have to be so strategic about what I say, and also I'm very transparent. So it's not so much what I say, but it's what I do and where I go, kind of thing. And after a certain point, I could tell that something really fell away, that they like couldn't really get to me anymore. And so I almost look at it like how we handle different ailments or injuries in life. It can only make us stronger. So I feel like I have found sort of a plateau of safety and protection somewhere in my being. Knock on wood. God knows what is around the corner as far as attacks go. But I think they know that we're armed and it's not a good idea to mess with us. I've made that clear publicly before, and it's just we're very we have everything that we could possibly need to be protected. We have copper magnets and all sort of things to ward off different frequency attacks. So, but yeah, I was pre-targeted before birth. Every time I don't feel a target on me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just so used to it that like I don't even know how it feels to not be targeted. But again, I used to not assume I was targeted. I'm like, I have so much inner work to do and this is all me. And I'm like, well, I do have a lot of inner work to do, but it's not all me. But part of the inner work is raising your frequency beyond these attacks because, just like the good and bad bacteria in our stomach. I mean, anything that's coming at us, anything that feels like the opposition, can serve to help us to really grow and expand into more than we can imagine. We gotta let it work for us, not against us.
That's a perfect way to put it and to respond to pretty much everything. Because I lost my train of thought here, but I am so grateful that people are such as yourself are here right now being so vocal in public and open about this and many other things, about the cabal and the mind control program like MK Ultra. And you were also talking about the Manchurian Candidate. So for the people out there who may not be familiar with that term, what is a Manchurian Candidate?
Well, it's somebody who has the capacity to all of a sudden be like, triggered to maybe do an operation or do something that wasn't formally a part of their agenda. So, yeah, I mean, it's something that I would definitely look up. There's a lot more that, one can say about it, but it's like a post-hypnotic trigger. It's something that like somebody else is in charge of. Maybe there's a handler or something else where they're controlling the narrative or somebody might seem okay and then all of a sudden something gets triggered in their brain, maybe even an alter, and they're off doing something that they normally maybe wouldn't do, but it's based on just maybe trauma-based mind control. I mean, there's other things that can create that sort of thing. I think a sleeper agent would be considered the same, and there's a lot of them. You can see somebody that seems wonderful and authentic, and they're out for the good of humanity, and then next thing you know, it's like, well, they're being used as a weapon against us. And so it's really important for people to look at, implants, and if they have any military connections to, just be aware of that. But anybody's vulnerable. Abduction scenarios can make one vulnerable. But there's also where there's what we see as darker control, there's also implants and things that can connect us to something positive. And there is positive military too. So it's really good to just get yourself, looked at, maybe hypnoregression, and just getting into just, just really go deep to see if you might be vulnerable to those sort of things. I mean, every single one of us should. Nobody is immune from being targeted. Some of us might be more heavily targeted because we might be going public, but the whole human race is targeted. But Manchurian candidates tend to be in political positions. So
Okay.
this particular person was like a Manchurian candidate, though, my partner. He wasn't active in politics, but it was that kind of thing where if they wanted him to do a mission, they would give him a code over the phone and he would disappear and not remember.
Okay. So now, I was wondering, now that we're talking about this topic, I also know that you have a mission when it comes to working with Mother Earth, because the name of your website is cosmicgaia.org. So how do you work with Mother Earth? What type of work do you do? Like, and how does Mother Earth come into play?
Well, my background's in wilderness expedition leadership, so I spent a lot of time, in nature and just really connecting in and just really listening, and being prepared as a child and just having a lot of epiphanies as a child. It really has to do with the Earth grids and the fact that this is a multidimensional planet. Our DNA, when we look at, the 12-strand DNA and beyond, it connects to the 12 stargates. It connects to the Earth grids. Our DNA is made up of earth, air, fire, water. The nucleic acids actually carry those as elements. The earth grids are based in earth, air, fire, water. And then we have the ether. And the platonic solids connect with earth, air, fire, water. So the dodecahedron, which is connected to the ether, is also a part of the earth grids. And it's been sort of shut down, which has been keeping us sort of in quarantine and unable to really ascend or transmute things or open up to, our greater spiritual abilities. And so it's all encoded in the earth, but a lot of the earth grids were tinkered with. Dark technologies were put in place to create reversals so that we would actually digress. And so when we look at the precession of the equinoxes and, just this last 26,000 year cycle, it ends up every 26,000 years, a stellar activation cycle happens where the Earth stargates begin to open. And this is synonymous with our ability to recognize our multidimensional being and multidimensional body. So when we look at like nature, there's herbs that can pretty much heal anything. There's animal spirits, like, if we run into a bear or an eagle, it might remind us of something. It might give us a message, right? Our DNA and the energy lines on our body are an exact replica of Gaia's earth grids. And so our DNA and the earth grids and our chakra system and the harmonic universes and the different levels of this multidimensional reality are all connected too. So when we start to move beyond the 7 chakras and into our galactic chakras, we start to unlock things like the infinity spiral in our energy body, which is also the 8th and 9th stargate on the planet, which were dismantled so that we would be born into this duality. But if we look at duality, how did duality come about? It's not just a belief system. It's because the earth grids were messed with and they were unplugged. Different areas were unplugged and a lot of dark rituals. And that's, the basis of satanic ritual abuse is to keep everything infected and dark and in low density. So symbolically, that's like the inverted pentagram, is that physicality holds dominion over spirit. And our spirit is just sort of locked and trapped. And this whole transformation of this ascension period and how it relates to the earth grids allows us to recognize that spirit holds dominion over matter. And the Venus transits have been a part of this. So the Venus transits have helped to correct these reversals and kind of turn everything upright again so that we have direct connect with spirit again. And it's not just happening to us on a physical level, it's happening to the planet. So the two go hand in hand. When we look at matrix programming, it tends to want to steer us into an artificial timeline and separate us from it, which means that we're being siphoned off of, we're being harvested. And that just doesn't allow us to advance in the way that we could. So there's a lot of different ET races and a lot of different beings that are supporting our advancement. And some maybe have had to do experiments and tinker around a little bit to help to prevent certain races from dying out. But again, it's kind of like us trying to go back and heal a memory that was traumatizing. So we have to understand the oneness of it all and not be afraid of what might appear to be a dark agenda, and just recognize that there are some that are definitely out to compromise, but there are a lot of benevolent ones that might be confusing to people that are actually helping to preserve a timeline by interfacing. And so some hybrid programs are really positive. Some might be not so positive. But again, it depends. When you're looking at through the eyes of any kind of race or being, it's like what we see in the animal kingdom. This whole and just how we see everything. So there's a lot of history about it all. But when we look at the multidimensional nature of the Earth, there's different harmonic universes that even hold like Orion and the Lyran system. I mean, it's all a part of actually the Gaia body. Gaia is not separate from all these different things, from these different galactic wars, but we're healing the galactic wars here on Earth. And we're starting to open up to our galactic family. We're starting to open up to different races and different beings that are not so much separate from Earth. They're still a part of Earth, but not this lower 3D density. They're a part of a higher harmonic universe that still holds an Earth frequency, but it's not the Earth frequency that we're in right now. And that's why we kind of call it extraterrestrial. But once we lift the veils, we'll realize that the Earth body herself has so many different layers and levels to it. And all these different ET races are just like exploring the ocean. If we didn't have people, diving into the ocean, we might only think that the ones that are close to the shore are the ones that exist. It takes exploration and the ability to look deeper to recognize that the multidimensional cosmos is a part of all of us. We all have a connection to it. And when we start to switch on the lights and switch in our DNA, we'll begin to, identify with different star systems and different ET embodiments we used to have, and what our mission here on Earth is to do. And we got to respect each other's missions. The only malevolent mission is if somebody is harming you against your will or trying to control you against your will. Everything else, we just have to just enjoy the diversity, and just have mutual love and respect. And whatever our differences are don't matter, because we're in an abundant world of diversity that is what makes this planetary body beautiful. So we got to learn from this planetary body. If she can have 10,000 different species of insects, can the multidimensional cosmos have just as many diverse beings? And can we embrace all that? I mean, that's the question. So oneness isn't sameness. Oneness, again, is diversity and harmony. So we just got to be the harmonizers and respect other life forms. And there's no one species that's negative. There's negative and positive in every species. And the only thing that makes anybody, it's you're either service to self or service to others. Those are the only two species I see, is that you're either out for yourself or you're here to embrace others and be in unity. And service to self doesn't mean you, service to others doesn't mean you negate self, but you work on the self in order to be a positive force for change.
Yes, and that's a huge point, because many people believe that they have to sacrifice themselves in order to serve a greater whole or to be of service to a large variety of people out there. And this is something that many abusive people and psychic vampires tend to use against people who are very giving, who are very open to helping, like healers and such, because they do not have boundaries and they do not know when to stop and how to know that they are being taken advantage of. So that's a huge point that you just brought up, because this is a very common issue in any community, pretty much. It's not just spirituality or the New Age or the UFO. We're talking about everything, everywhere that involves a large group of people. There's always that one person who's very loving and giving, but they may not have boundaries to know when to stop and when to know that someone is taking advantage of them and abusing them. So that's very important to know.
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, balance is everything. You have to really take care of the human vessel, have boundaries, stand your ground, know what your truth is. And that's a good service to self. And then you can go out and serve others. Service to self, which is the malevolent kind, is exploiting others for the benefit of self, stealing energy, but the thing is, you wouldn't be able to be stolen from if you had the boundaries, right? So everybody's got to learn from this duality. We're here for soul development and spiritual development. So if we were born into duality, let's learn from it. Let's learn from the negative. Let's learn from the positive and find that center point. That's what connecting to zero point's about. That's what this integration process is about. But if we keep choosing sides, we're at one extreme and we're negating the other. But if we can integrate both, we can be in our center point. And in that center point, we hold the ultimate power. And it's not ego power, it's the power of creation. It's the regenerative power of nature. It's the power of spirit. And it doesn't light anybody up. It activates people. It helps them to stand in their authenticity and truth. So,
And embracing the shadow and integrate it with the light as well.
exactly. When people choose dark or they choose light, it's like light and dark. We're made of both. You know, maybe things hide in the dark that are kind of scary, or but the dark is the womb. It's the soil. It's where we plant seeds. If we're not embracing the dark, then we're not really anchored into our bodies. We're not anchored into the earth. If we're too much in the light, then our feet aren't on the ground. If we're too much in the dark, then we don't have seeds that are coming in. We might just be, in a very, dark and low place. But if we have a root system, if we have our energies grounded, if we're creative beings, then, our darkness receives the seeds of our thoughts, our higher consciousness, and it generates it into a physical manifestation. So if we deny any part of ourselves, we're only screwing ourselves over, so we can't. Picking sides never made sense to me. I can understand, if there's something that's, it's not really about good or evil. It's taking the charge off, because there is good and evil out there, but it's taking the charge off of it and that outer judgment, and looking internally to just the balance, because then you start to change the way it looks on the outside. Because the thing is, when we ascend into higher earth energies, it's because our DNA is switching on and the reality around us changes, because there's more available to us. As long as we stay limited and we're in this conquer, divide, or duality, or war, or battle, or choosing sides, we're only going to see a world that reflects that back. When we can not bypass it, but when we can do the integration process, when we can begin to switch on these dormant strands of DNA, all of a sudden everything shifts. And agendas get busted. Things start to dissolve. The things that are less than favorable, the things that are compromising nature. When we purify our negative ego and clean our inner elements, the earth responds. The oceans start to clear without us having to, do it manually. The skies start to clear. And that's what the shift is all about, is really upgrading our DNA, because our reality is absolutely going to change in front of us. And so there's a lot of agendas out there that, that's the whole basis of wanting to keep us dumbed down, is so that we can't advance our DNA. And if we're fighting amongst each other, we can't share codes. We can't share our differences in a way that actually serves us. Instead, the war is won within. It's an internal war that needs to be won first. Everybody's battling on the outside right now, and it's like, come on, guys. It's like,
I know it's stupid to fight over differences when how boring it would be to have like 10 different Zion Zetas, for example. Life is so beautiful when we're all unique and different, and celebrate our own uniqueness, because we are all different shards of a broken mirror. We're all one, but we all reflect each other different perspectives, just as if you would take this broken mirror and use the pieces to reflect it from different angles. We're all unique and different because we're all shaped differently, but we're all part of the same thing, which is the creator. Now,
yes,
speaking,
beautifully put. Thank you.
thank you, Laura. That means a lot to me. That's an example I always use everywhere and anywhere that I can. But it is true. And like I always say, we're all different types of flowers, so we all bloom differently. So that's another thing. We cannot rush our healing or our spirituality or whatever it is that we're working on transmuting or integrating, because we're not exactly the same, even though we're all one at a soul level. We have to stop the competition and comparing each other and fighting for, over differences, and just learn to appreciate each other for who we truly are at our core. Because there's so many people trying to fit in and be something that they're not, and they are neglecting their uniqueness, which is exactly what these people want, so that they never find their own truth and their own inner voice.
Exactly. Yep, very well put again. So that's where it's at. Authenticity, and going through whatever process one needs to go through. I mean, sometimes we have to emotionally purge. Sometimes, anger is acceptable. I mean, we can't deny these parts of ourselves. And so there's a lot of new age deceptions that create a lot of judgment on whatever process we need to go through. Or if we feel it's sort of like when people say, oh, you're just being a victim. It's like nobody wants to remain feeling like a victim, but we need to just help each other move through the feeling of being victimized, because there is a bit of that. It's not to be encouraged as a mindset to stick with, and neither is fear a good emotion to stay stuck in, but we can't deny that these feelings aren't going to come up. So instead of shaming them, instead of judging them, we can assist one another in moving through them. It's the judgment that stops us in our tracks, and then it only makes things worse. Shoot, my son keeps.
Well, not just that, but also people say a lot, if you drop the F word, you're not spiritual. So you and I both drop our F bombs and all kinds of bombs. So, like, is really spirituality defining who we are based on whether we swear or not? It's really silly for people to focus on the little things like the language of somebody. Because if you really let that affect you, what does that say about you? Like, there are bigger issues on this planet to take care of than focusing on someone, whether they're spiritual or not, simply because of whether they swear or not. I mean, talk about a first world problem.
I know. Yeah. Um, yeah. The thing is, we're all spiritual beings by nature. And just being true to yourself is going to connect you with the spiritual realms. And yeah, I can't help the fact that I swear. And it's one of the strongest ways to deflect energy that I found. I did this biofeedback thing to heal certain things in my childhood, and nothing worked. The only thing that worked is when I said F you, and then it all cleared. So, it works for some, maybe not everybody, but the whole projection and judgment thing, same with like the food people eat. It's like, when people are telling other people how to live, it's ridiculous. I mean, you and I have something very in common here. We just want unity. We just want everybody to be themselves. We just want everybody to love and respect each other. The rest just seems ridiculous. Oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do this. The only thing that I say we shouldn't do is treat each other horrible. The rest is like, that's your life to live. Okay, if it's detrimental, there's articles to read. I might just post something, but I'm not going to put it in people's face and act like I'm policing their life. I might just share an inspirational article. Maybe it'll change their viewpoint. I just don't think it gets a person anywhere. I think it creates like even more rebellion and even more war and duality. So yeah.
Well, I am so happy that we brought that up because I know that many people don't really think about things until they are confronted with, oh, you're not spiritual if you talk bad. And this actually brings me to something that I noticed because, again, people bash you on one side, but then on the other, they're very interested in what you offer. So this is a kind of a strange twist, or I guess switch from one thing to the other. But I have noticed that you have a newsletter on your website about astrological reports for only $5 a month. So can you tell me more about this membership and what can people expect when they sign up?
Yes. Basically, once you sign up, you have the option to go to my bookings page and book what it says, for subscribers, a 10-minute session. It normally is 10 to 15, depending. And if you can't book, you can send me an email and I'll do it in writing. There's also a discount for subscribers on a half-hour reading. And I encourage people, if they do a longer reading, to take the lower end of the sliding scale. And so basically, I have a private group for all subscribers, and I'll just be interactive and share certain things. And then I share a video once a month of the things that are going on in the stars, maybe information about my events, and yeah, just generally maybe my thoughts on what's going on in disclosure. I haven't been able to put one out in a while, but I mean, basically for $5.99, getting a 10-minute session, you're getting. I think you're definitely getting your money's worth. Everybody who has signed up for it was just like, oh my gosh, I just got the downloaded I needed. I was able to answer this question, and $4.99, that's like going to Starbucks for a day, right? So in 1 month, which is less than not even a penny a day, you just have access to your own personal astrological data. And to know your own personal stuff in these times is really helpful, because I use astrology as a tool to help liberate people from the wheel, or to help them get into the unified field, because it's like a map. And so if something's affecting you and you really need to check in, your subscription allows that, connection and phone call. And again, I do more than 10 minutes. I'm very generous, and if somebody has a question or wants to email me, it just sort of, allows for more communication. And I don't like to charge, but I'm not living off the grid. And, I have children and I live hand to mouth. So it's just a way to keep up with people and assist them in their progress, and help to, answer any questions that are making them, if they're feeling stuck, or if there's any health issues. I'm a nutritional consultant too, just to help people in this window period. So I'm hoping to put out a video again soon. I noticed that it goes to a lot of people's spam. And if you miss a month or two, we can start to stack up the amount of time you missed. So I try and be as, fair as possible, and you can unsubscribe at any time if it's not working out, or if you don't feel like you're getting anything from it.
And again, that is only just $5 a month. It's accessible to anybody and everybody, including the haters, which we were just talking about. People complaining that, oh my gosh, stop dropping the F-bomb, blah blah blah. But maybe some of them are already subscribed. But but as you guys know, only $5 a month. Like, you're getting such a big deal from a good deal for your buck. And also, I know that you also offer other services. So I would like to ask you, what other types of services do you offer?
Well, so my website's cosmicgaia.org. And if you go to the bookings page, I do 2-hour sessions. I do 90-minute sessions. I do an hour session. I do half-hour sessions, 15-minute, 10-minute. And basically, I do galactic tarot. I have been doing tarot for more than 20 years. I've been doing astrology for more than a decade. So the astrology is more soul-centered. And then with the tarot, and that adds a nice dimension. And then I graduated from a clairvoyant institute that I went to for 2 years. So just really strengthened my capacity to see and read past lives. So I kind of let the person that signs up tailor it to what their needs are. And then I send tools and recommendations, like, especially if somebody has health issues. I've got some books that hold hidden government cures that the government doesn't want us to know, to heal things like Lyme's disease, and to heal, like, all sorts of stuff. So I kind of like help advise people on health issues. And I talk to a lot of people that are wanting to share their story, that have been through satanic ritual abuse, a lot of contactees and abductees, and so there's a huge range of what I can take on. I also do relationship charts. I do about 5 different charts. So if you have questions, about your child or a partner or significant other, I can do that as well. And hopefully my prices are fair. If they don't seem fair, or your budget's tight, just send me a message. Tell me what your situation is. Even in emergency cases, I do free readings, because I'm not really about the money. But because I do this for a living, and I have a strong education backing it, I have to, kind of make a living from it. But again, if there's a huge crisis or emergency, I've done tons of, sessions when I can, free of charge. So, just know that you're not alone, and I can work with you. But at the same time, I got a lot of demands on me, so I don't want to disappoint anybody either. And I'm also a consultant. If anybody wants to ask questions about some of the presentations that I've done, or anything that they've seen, in my YouTube videos. Fortunately, nobody's complaining about me dropping the F-bombs. I don't know, maybe here and there, but I tend to go back and delete or edit on Facebook. But yeah, it's open to everybody. And, if you're a hater and you want to ask me questions and try and understand me, or have me validate some things that you're doubting, you can sign up for that too.
There's Laura Eisenhower. For everybody out there who would like to support her, you can go to her website, cosmicgaia.org. You can either sign up for her newsletter or purchase a private session with her. Again, this is a spiritual service. A lot of people have issues with charging money for it. However, if you don't really want to be a part of the 9-to-5 job, and you want to live your excitement and live your mission and just make that your focus, we still live in a society and a planet where we still depend on money in order to live as an exchange of sorts to have goods like a home and food on our plate. So it's very important that we go beyond the fear of money and charging for our services and really honoring money, because that is only an energy that can be either good or bad depending on the hands that it falls on. So the more, yeah, no, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, real spiritual work, has a lot to do with, you know, giving, maybe blankets to the homeless, or being supportive of people that are really downtrodden. For spiritual work, I mean, astrology is a science. I'm giving data, I'm giving information. Being a compassionate person that does things for free and volunteers to do things for free, that shouldn't, necessarily be paid for. But when it's a service, when it's an education you've gotten that somebody else doesn't have the time to do, then you're giving them something that they wouldn't be able to do. But anybody can be kind to somebody in need. It's different if you have an education, because Chinese acupuncturists get money, massage therapists get money. That could be considered spiritual too. So people, they're all proud of the paychecks they get that aren't spiritual, that they think they deserve money for doing something that maybe isn't healthy for the planet. So I find that worse, that it's acceptable to get a paycheck doing something that doesn't have a whole lot of meaning, compared to doing something with meaning and being judged for having an energetic exchange come out of it. So people got to kind of really look at that. I used to do this stuff for free. People used to say, you got to quit your job because you need to do this full time. Why don't you ask for donations? So I was really encouraged to move in this direction. So I was a landscaper. I did other professions. And when I did readings on the side, people are like, you should do this all the time, but you're not going to be able to feed your kids if you don't ask for donations. So just to throw that out there, because I know, like you said, some people can be a little bit put off, or I understand if I charge $500 for a half hour, but we're talking $50 for subscribers for a half hour. And there's a lot that goes into it. It can be, life altering. So
I guess it depends on the type of service that you offer and how you price it, because many people tend to go overboard with the pricing. So that's another thing to watch out for. We can become greedy very easily. Like money can really corrupt the person depending on their type of energy. If they are open and vulnerable to being manipulated by the negative energy that they may perceive from the money, because I know that money is a tool and it can be used to corrupt people, but also for the good people. So again, this is a very tricky situation where it depends on the people. So it's all about tuning in to the vibration of the person and seeing like, how do you think that they are? Like, just observe the person and really tune in, really use your intuition to know if this is someone that you would like to invest on or not, if you would prefer to move on or not. Because again, like you mentioned, Laura, we are 7 billion human beings and many of us do the same thing, but nobody can offer it like you can. So if someone really digs your vibration, they will choose you over anyone else that does the same thing that you do.
yeah, and that's what it's there for. I don't know how much longer I'll be doing it, because my career is sort of shifting gears to doing docuseries, and just doing more stuff related to getting information out to greater numbers. But as long as it's still open, it can be incredibly helpful. I've been doing it for quite a long time, and I don't think I've gotten hardly any negative feedback, so that's a good thing.
I know it's actually great. And that actually leads me to the next question, which is, as one of the official speakers of Connecting the Stars, the symposium, what will you be presenting about and talking about?
Right. Okay. Let me just, it's really about the current ascension cycle. And I'm just going to get that up here again. So I will be discussing the rehabilitation process that humanity is going through right now as more crimes against humanity become revealed and disclosure begins to take center stage. So we are talking a lot about that, the disclosure movement, a lot of the dramas going on. So I might address a little bit of that, but even before all this happened, it just has to do with, I mean, there's a lot of disturbing things. We're talking pedophilia, we're talking satanic ritual abuse. How do people process this and handle it? And how can we work with this energy of disclosure and stay sovereign and understand that we're the disclosure, and understand that this is not so much about the external coming in, it's about the internal and what it generates to the world, right? Because disclosure has a lot to do with us waking up to who we truly are and what we're really made of. So I'll be touching upon that. I'll talk about our soul architecture and DNA in relation to the elements, archetypes, and earth grids, and how we're correcting the reversals that stem from the use of dark technologies put in place by different controller groups. I'll help us understand how to move into polarity integration and higher earth energies and what process the physical body is going through to achieve this. And I'll be discussing galactic chakras, zodiac, and the 13th sign, and how it relates to Stargate activation and our reconnection with the 0-point unified field. So, yeah, and I'll try and keep it kind of simple. I don't want, some of these terminologies to go over people's heads. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I was thrilled when you invited me, and I hope people will jump on board.
I know, and I will make sure to put the link on the interviews video so that people can see the link all the time of Laura Eisenhower's affiliate link, which is zionzeta.com/Laura Eisenhower. You can go there, purchase either her single speaker presentation or access to the full event, and she will receive a 50% commission, regardless of whichever ticket that you guys prefer to purchase from. Now, where can people find you and your work, Laura?
Okay, so I'm on Facebook, Laura Eisenhower. You can also find me at cosmicgaia.org, and I have a YouTube channel. So yeah, website cosmicgaia.org, and mostly the only social media I use is actually Facebook. I'm not much of a Twitter user, and yeah, that's how to reach me. Check out the sessions, and some of the events are going to be listed on the page. I got some cool stuff coming up, so hopefully people will be able to make it out, because it's really wonderful when we can all gather together in the physical form.
And to raise the vibration of the planet much quicker by coming together and unite as a group to work for the same purpose, which is bringing disclosure to the masses.
That's right.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Spiritual Alien Podcast. And thank you so much for tuning in to Laura Eisenhower's interview. I hope you guys stick around. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Zion Zeta, always at your service. Remember to grab your free gift, which is the mini version of my book, Connecting the Stars, to read 7 random chapters for free, as well as the Astro Travel Starter Guide for Beginners and the 20 Ways to Raise Your Vibe, by going to zionzeta.com/freebies. To connect with me on social media or to know more about who I am and the work that I do, you can also find me on my website, zionzeta.com.